Good afternoon. In this video, I want to deal with an issue that's been raised. I got some emails asking about the issue of the purity of the personal purity of King James, the one, King James I who authorized the King James Bible. And of course, this has been a subject of attack. He's been under attack with a lot of innuendo and accusations against him. This is a work that dealt with that particular King James, Unjustly Accused by Coston. Now, I don't know if this is still in print. A brother reminded me of a quote here from Abraham Lincoln. On page 210, if you have the work. I like what Lincoln used to say to his lawyer friends who wanted to pass off opinion as fact in law. He used this riddle. If a man would call the tail of a dog a leg, how many legs would the dog have? 5 was the usual reply. Wrong, Lincoln would say with a smile. The dog still has 4 legs. Calling the tail a leg doesn't make it one. So, calling King James I an immoral person doesn't make him one. You can go to various works in the King James Bible that are really excellent works. Here's an excellent one by Stauffer. One book, one authority. 2,000 years of church and Bible history. Excellent book. You notice he says here one authority. One authority, as opposed to final authority. Final authority gives it a wrong connotation. That somehow there are authorities that are coming up to a peak. But there's really just one authority over here, and then there's other books. There's one book, and there's other, So this is the authority. There's no other authorities. So it's not competing authorities. There's the authority. And he points out here, you can go through this book here, and so if you can't find the Coston book, you can always get this. And this, anyone who wants deep understanding the King James issue, this would be an excellent one book to read. There's a lot of books on it, but this is one of them. It's an excellent book. I highly recommend it. He deals with it. But here's a shorter book here. If you want to just from Riplinger, The Hidden History of the English Scriptures. And she writes in here, let's see. Okay, page 30. Page 29. King James, a godly Christian. King James was an evangelical Christian. He wrote a book for his son entitled Basilikon Dormant, which became an international bestseller. In it, the king stated he was praying God that as you are regenerated and born in him anew, so you may rise to him and be sanctified in him forever, with white garments wash in the blood of the Lamb. And he adds, now faith is the free gift of God, as Paul saith. The Dictionary of National Biography states that James was decidedly pure. A contemporary wrote in 1602, among his good qualities, none shines more brightly than the chasteness of his life, which he has preserved without stain down to the present time, contrary to the example of almost all his ancestors. And the individual cites Coston, which that's work I said, Unjustly Accused, page 55, 44, 284, 39. One Italian visitor described his chastity and added in his eyes and his outward appearance there was a certain natural kindness bordering on modesty. He wears his hair short. About food and clothing he does not care. And let's see here. What does he say? He wrote things against his son. That's what I want to read here. And this book he said about sodomy. Let's see. From the consider these few excerpts from James' own pen to his son. This is the excerpts from the book that he wrote to his son. One of them was abstain from the filthy. There are some horrible crimes which ye are bound in conscience never to forgive, such as witchcraft, willful murder, incest, and sodomy. Abstain from the filthy vice of adultery. Remember only what solemn promise ye made to God at your marriage. So, That's on page 365. And again, going on here, going back to Riplinger. Harvard University Press, Jacobean Pageant states that James, like all who live godly, was the subject of slanders spread by defeated rivals. Benjamin Disraeli says such rivals filled their work with libel and invective instead of history. This is a style which passes for history with some readers. Historians can and should ignore the venomous caricature of the king's person and behavior, notes Morris Lee, author of the Great Britain's Solomon, James VI. Author Stephen A. Coston cites a personal letter to himself from Roger Magnusson, author and trial lawyer, graduate of Stanford University, Oxford University, and Harvard Law School. Magnusson wrote, I find no evidence to prove the unkind accusations leveled at King James. And again, she cites a number of pages from Coston. William Sanderson said, the king knew no better means to suppress the credit of false rumors than by his own pious practice in religion, by outward frequency in the exercise of prayer and preaching, duly performing and executing his justice and mercy, with such wisdom and piety as made his virtues thereby more transparent to the common view and sense of all men. Again, Coston, page 291. At his funeral, he was described as a miracle of king and a king of miracles. It was under King James that England was first called Great Britain. Bevan, page 12, 79, 201. So, there you have, God raised up a king to authorize the King James Bible. Remember, when the King James Bible came out, it wasn't called King James Bible. It was called the Holy Bible. And the attacks on it, raised ever since. Even when it came out, it was being attacked. But it was the purpose of it. They don't ever tell you, the translators to the readers. They point out that the translators that their purpose was to create one Bible that could not be justly refuted. If not using the rough words, I have to look at the actual words. But they would have been King James only. Remember, the competition was between the Geneva Bible and the Bishop's Bible, and that was causing the confusion. And they came up, so we have to retrain, get this translation. And what they did is really polished the Geneva Bible, which was really from Tyndale. So you get that lineage right from Tyndale. And the issue was, remember, the issue was to get a Bible in English, and the English hadn't been perfected yet. And the whole purpose of the English was to get the plowboy to be able to understand the scriptures better than the scholar. That's why when someone wants to the Greek, they're lying to you. So I would tell you about Robert Breaker, when he told you doulos, servant and slave, are synonymous. They're not. Not in English. Not in English. And that's what we're reading. A servant and slave are two different connotations, people. Gail Riplinger points that herself. And that's why the word slave wasn't used in all those other areas. Context will tell you. And that's in every language, people. Don't let these guys tell you these people went back to Strong's Concordance. They went there and said, the Greek word here really means this, And translators knew the Greek. They knew the Hebrew. They could think in the language. And context will tell you what word to use in every language. It never changes. But we don't look at anything underneath the English anymore. That was the big break between Waite and Riplinger. Because Riplinger came out and said, you don't need lexicons. First he said, well, lexicons are corrupted. In a book on lexicons. They were created by corrupt guys, and they were corrupted. So, we don't need lexicons, because you can't trust the lexicons. And you don't need Greek and Hebrew. You don't need manuscripts. Don't bother with it. That's drove people crazy. How radical. But that's what the whole purpose was, to get the Bible in your own language. If you still have to go to the Greek, what use is the English? So when a guy wants to you and says, why I hate to do this, I'm only going to go to the Greek, he doesn't believe the English. Buckman does it all the time. He's always given a Greek word here and a Hebrew word there. the fact is, you're done as a King James Bible believer once you went to a Greek or Hebrew word and tells you, well, I don't need to look at a Greek word, Hebrew word, know what the English word means. I got the English dictionaries. I got the context in the English, and I got English words, English dictionaries that tell me the English. Don't believe what Breaker was telling you. Don't believe the English. That's what he's telling you. That's what everyone who tells you to run to a Greek lexicon, a Hebrew lexicon, is going to tell you who owns the Strong's. Well, the English says this, but write them off. Write them off. And you got to believe that it's a miracle. There's a process, and the Word of God, it's the King James Bible, is in pure English, perfect English, and you don't need anything else. That was the goal. That was the goal. And the translator said that was their goal. One principle, translation, not to be justly argued against. And the other Bibles faded. What happened to the Bishop's Bible? Gone. Geneva Bible, 50 years, gone. King James was known as the Bible for hundreds of years. All of a sudden, people come up with a new version, and it wasn't called the King James. The modern versions put the name King James on it to distinguish them from the King James, because the real name is the Holy Bible. King James is the Holy Bible. There's some translation that no one cares about. They couldn't have that. No, we got to call it the Revised Standard Version. So versus what? The King James Bible. So we revised the King James. No, it's King James. It's the Holy Bible. It's the Holy Bible. It's not the King. That's what we have to now use that terminology because there's so many versions out there. So that's the King James Bible. But King James didn't put his name to it. That was put there by people who came with revisions later. To try to rival the King James. Say, well, we got to look at our Bible. See? So I'll stop, put this up. Again, if you want to study this subject in more detail, you got these other books out here that you can go to. A lot of other excellent books. Crown with Glory is a good book. If you have, I think it's on this computer program, Sword Searcher. I think that book is on there. So if you had that Sword Searcher, if you have that, you can find that Crown with Glory in there. I don't know if he addresses that issue of King James, but he goes through a lot of things. But that's all it is to create doubt. That's all it is about creating doubt. You got to be able to open your book up with the King James Bible and know what you're reading is the Word of God. You can't doubt it. And you can't think that word can't mean what it says. And when someone tells you that that word means something, it says that, and you have to go to another language to figure it out. That man is deceptive. He's deceiving you. I don't care how much you like the guy. Because he's lying to you. He's lying to you. And they want to attack the King James Bible through King James. They're lying to you. They got no evidence, and they go through a lot of various things. They bring up a lot of stuff, how he spoke back then, and he did this, he did that, he did that. They could always bring up stuff, people. They can always bring up a bunch of lies and get people, it sounds convincing. But other people give testimony. Said, no, this guy was a pure guy. So, they had close friendships with men. See, that's in a perverse world, that's considered unnatural now. That you'd have a close friendship with other men. But back then it wasn't perverse. They weren't perverts. And so people look back because they're perverts. They think everybody else is perverts. They weren't perverts. You can have a close friendship with a man. That's what Paul and David and Jonathan had. Be total normal. So let me stop and put this up. Amen. Thank you.